tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
You know, it didn't happen today, but it sounds like it is going to happen.
They're all out.
They only have 5 more left.
Disappointment and frustration for thousands trying to book COVID vaccine shots at BC pharmacies. Also,
a rowdy restaurant party, a surge in COVID-19 cases, popular BC ski resorts shutting down early, and
you have to have faith and hope and courage to move forward and that this would not happen again.
with the accused heading to court, a quiet community in North Vancouver comes together after last weekend's deadly violence.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a grim and troubling new record in BC's pandemic.
For the first time, there are more than 1,000 new COVID-19 cases. That puts our province at more than 100,000 total cases. Meanwhile, 3 more people have died from the deadly virus. If there is any silver lining tonight, 16% of British Columbians have now received at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
And with that rise in cases and restrictions in the way, nearly all of BC's ski hills are shuttering early this season.
Operations have fallen like dominoes after the forced closure of Whistler this week. Our Tanya Fletcher is live with us tonight. Tanya, now we're hearing Big White is also choosing to shut down a week sooner than planned.
That's right, and it's the latest in a series of new developments at Big White in about the last 24 hours. It all started with this video here. You can see crowds of young people partying at Charlie Victoria's restaurant Monday night. That was just hours after BC announced tighter COVID restrictions. The footage surfaced late yesterday, and since then, the restaurant has apologized, the owner saying he made an ignorant decision out of pure selfish frustration over the new rules. A couple of Big White staff who were there at the party have been fired, and Big White has also just terminated its contract with the restaurant and evicted them altogether. The resort says separately it has decided to shut down its ski season early this Monday, and here's why.
We saw really an unprecedented amount of inquiries coming from the Lower Mainland to Big White Ski Resort, both through our website and our 1-800 number. And it gave us a great deal of concern that people were willing to travel when they shouldn't be, just to come to the last ski resort open.
Now, we also just confirmed today that Revelstoke Mountain Resort is closing as well. Management there says it's because of a staffing shortage due to COVID-19. Anyone with unused lift tickets at that resort can get a full refund or credit for next winter.
Okay, and Tanya, we also have some fresh data breaking down the demographic of Whistler cases. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the numbers have shown a steep increase over the past few weeks in the number of people in Whistler testing positive, and the overwhelming majority of those cases, in fact, 83%, have been in people aged 20 to 39. Vancouver Coastal Health says the transmission has mainly been happening between young people in social gatherings and household settings. Now, the health minister says there's been a recent increase in positive test results among young people overall.
438 people in one day between 20 and 39 tested positive for COVID-19. That the 7-day case average for people 20 to 39, the 7-day rolling average, so that that evens out the day-to-day changes, has gone from went in about a week from the low 200s to the mid 300s.
He also says the median age of the very concerning P1 variant, the one originating in Brazil, is now just 28 years old. Mike, Anita.
Tanya Fletcher live for us tonight. Thanks, Tanya. Well, when it comes to getting vaccinated, the demand is there, but BC pharmacies are struggling to deliver.
Within seconds of yesterday's announcement that COVID vaccine shots could be booked, thousands of people in the 55 to 65 age group scrambled to make appointments.
Some succeeded, but many were left disappointed. And as Zara Premji reports, many Lower Mainland pharmacies seemed caught off guard.
Picture of the front and the back of your driver's license.
They lined up early hoping for a shot or at least an appointment.
The shoppers, I stood in line for an hour this morning at Dunbar and at the other shoppers, and the lineup was around the block, and we didn't get anything. We had to leave.
But she was one of the lucky ones able to head to another location.
So I was here early and I was third in line. I got my appointment for tomorrow, and we're thrilled.
Not the situation for all.
They won't be taking the people more than that now. The people who are inside, they're on the borderline, so it'll be done.
Whether they showed up in person at a pharmacy or tried to book on the phone, it has been a frustrating and confusing experience.
I guess everybody has to be patient. They just announced yesterday for the 55 to 65, so this wasn't unexpected.
Clearly there's a pent-up demand, and we're happy to help.
But the help hasn't arrived for many 55 to 65-year-olds Nika vaccine at Lower Mainland pharmacies. Seems many appointments were somehow grabbed last night. London Drugs heading to Twitter to say as soon as the news was public, their stores became inundated with customers wanting to book appointments. And there was no requirement by the government to wait until Wednesday to take appointments.
The pharmacist said two things. A, we don't have any AstraZeneca vaccine yet, and we don't know when we're going to get it. And B, we haven't been told how to distribute this.
But the province says it responded quickly to the extra supply of the vaccine that needed to be moved quickly.
An effective reaction, an efficient reaction to a change in circumstance. And that's exactly what you'd expect public health to do.
And those rushing to get the vaccine say they understand, but a year into the pandemic, they'd expect clearer guidance.
You have to work on your messaging and your delivering a little harder.
In the meantime, people wanting the vaccines fear they'll keep seeing signs like this, explaining vaccines are fully booked at the pharmacy. But the province says while the first batch of 13,500 vaccines will run out by Friday, another 43,000 are expected to arrive by the end of the week. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
And as BC works to ramp up the rollout of vaccines, appointments are also being opened up to a younger cohort of Indigenous people. Those over 18 years old can now book to get a vaccine in each health authority in the province. Dr. Bonnie Henry has given the go-ahead to contact their regional health authority call center to schedule the first shot.
Well, just minutes before puck drop, Vancouver's hockey game against the Calgary Flames has been canceled. The NHL confirming just moments ago that another unnamed player and a coach are now in the league's COVID protocol. Earlier today, it was announced Adam Gaudette entered COVID protocol. He'll be in self-isolation for the next 10 days after a retest of his initial sample came back positive. Any of his close contacts will be quarantined for 2 weeks now. All players and staff are tested daily. After a tragic stabbing spree that killed one woman and injured 6 other people, the North Vancouver community of Lynn Valley is trying to heal.
Today, the library where the attack took place reopened. As John Hernandez reports, workers want people to know it's still a safe place.
A vast sea of flowers grows by the day outside the Lynn Valley Library, a sign that there's still a lot of hurt in the community.
All I have been doing is praying and lighting candles at home and just sending out healing energy and my love to the families, and the one who has passed away.
This is where one woman was killed and 6 others injured during a stabbing spree on Saturday. The haunting scene, a particular concern for library staff and board members like Culvier Mann, who are used to providing a safe space to those in the community.
I come here all the time with my kids to the library, and I'm just devastated by what has happened, and it's just overwhelming to see this display today. But I'm not surprised about the outreach and love.
Today, the library reopened for the first time since the attack.
They want people to know that it is still a safe place. That was, somebody just said to me, it was a moment in time, and it's past, and we have to move forward together, and the library is still a safe and space for everyone.
This busy plaza, coupled with messages of love and hope, a sign that this community is ready to heal. A wellness and resilience center has been set up for those struggling with grief, open daily for the next week.
You have to have faith and hope and courage to move forward, and that this would not happen again.
Meanwhile, the 28-year-old suspect, Yannick Bundalgo, has been charged with second-degree murder. He's expected to appear in provincial court via video call tomorrow. Police say they are still trying to uncover a motive for one of the most violent attacks this community has ever seen. John Hernandez, CBC News, North Vancouver.
A 42-year-old man is now facing charges in connection with one of the fires yesterday at Lower Mainland Masonic Halls. Benjamin Coleman has been charged with 1 count of arson and 1 count of assaulting a police officer in relation to an incident near a hall in East Vancouver. Coleman was arrested shortly after an off-duty police officer driving near the temple noticed a man walking away from the building as it burned. 2 other arson fires at Masonic Halls in North Vancouver are still under investigation. Coleman remains in custody.
RCMP are asking for help identifying a man accused of assaulting a pregnant woman in Surrey.
The woman was leaving a bank in the area of 102 Avenue and King George Boulevard. As the woman was walking out of the bank,
the woman was attacked just before noon on March 23rd. Fortunately, she suffered only minor injuries. Police have released surveillance photos of the suspect, saying the unprovoked assault is very concerning. The suspect is described as a Caucasian man, slender build, wearing a sky blue jacket, dark pants, and a gray hat. Anyone with information is asked to contact Surrey RCMP or Crime Stoppers.
Okay, it's not all bad news tonight. From our feel-good news file, a litter of 10-day-old kittens stolen in Abbotsford have been found and reunited. Here are the 5 kittens back with their mother, Mittens, today. Abbotsford police say they received an overwhelming number of tips after posting about the stolen litter yesterday. One of the kittens was brought into the SPCA this afternoon, and the other 4 were tracked down and recovered by the Crime Reduction Unit. Police say the investigation is ongoing, and there's no word of an arrest.
Okay, I know we're going into weather, but I have to say, everyone kept saying to me last night and today, who steals kittens?
I know. I'm so glad that was happy ending, but you're right. I had tweets sent to me asking if we knew if the kittens were recovered. So that's the news we needed.
Yeah. And now, do we have more news that we need? Or more weather news that we need?
Good segue. Yes. Well, we have to get through a bit of a cold front tracking our way, but it's not a washout of a day tomorrow. It's sort of the perfect end to the week before we get into some more sunshine just in time for our long weekend. Let me show you the current temperatures out there. We were dealing with, we got spring bugs already coming out. We were already dealing with cooler morning temperatures the past couple of days. It is going to be a milder night with the clouds already rolling in. Let me take you through the overnight temperatures, getting down around 4s, 5s, and 6s across Metro Vancouver for your morning temperature. So a much milder start to your Thursday. We always get the warmest push before a cold front rolls through. And that cold front is dissipating as we speak. But look at the satellite. Really thickening up just in the past couple of hours. We had some gorgeous high cirrus, the wispy stuff for most of the day. In the past hour, we actually had a sun halo. If you were out looking at the sun, you would have seen, not directly, a sort of a beautiful ring around it thanks to those high altitude ice crystals. But now we're talking overcast skies. And this is the front that's actually bringing some severe weather to central coastal sections and Fort St. John. You've got wind warnings for tonight into tomorrow. By the time it gets to us, though, Anita and Mike, tomorrow, we're just talking a few showers through the day. So all is not lost, especially as we head into the long weekend. Those details coming up.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Johanna.
You're welcome.
And a reminder, you can always watch our newscasts live on CBC Gem.
And CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
During a sexual misconduct crisis in Canada's military, another hit. The military's head of personnel is off the job because of a CBC News exclusive. Those details next. Thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. We have a heartwarming story for you about the kindness of strangers and how that kindness kept a family together.
It's about a single mother from Alberta who had to make a critical decision about who would care for her infant son and in which country. Have a look.
Claire's home this is my town, this is my home. I stayed for many years at Dairy Queen. When I got pregnant, being a single mom, it's hard, away from family. I met this Canadian couple that they're just a regular customer at Dairy Queen.
My husband, he was retired, and he would go for coffee to the Dairy Queen. They got to talking. I think he asked what she was going to do once she had the baby.
So I just cried and I said, I think when I give birth, I'll just take my son back home, let my parents take care of him, and then I'll just come back to earn money. The next day after we talked, they came back and they said, Dixie, just stay, and we are promising you that we're going to help you to take care of your son. They welcomed me, they welcomed my son, and they offered that they will take you to work and then we'll watch him and we will pick you up, and then they will drop my son back home too with all the groceries and stuff. They just give their unconditional love for me and for my son.
My husband, he didn't have any family on his side in Canada either. He was born in Berlin, and once the wall was coming up, he left. When he came over, people helped him, so he wanted to help somebody too.
My son called them grandma and grandpa, but sad to say, grandpa passed away. So it's just grandma. I met these good people with a good heart, Canadians who helped me throughout to take care of my son. They even let me feel that I am one of their family.
Tough choice, nice story.
Lovely, always really nice to see moments like that and people, the kindness of strangers.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, back in just a couple of seconds. Lots more news from across the country and around the world. Until then, at 6:16, have a live look at downtown Vancouver over to the North Shore Mountains. The clouds, as Joe said, starting to roll in tonight. We'll be right back.
Well, another high-ranking official in Canada's military is now off the job indefinitely after an allegation of rape.
Vice Admiral Hayden Edmondson was the Chief of Human Resources, but is now on leave.
Ashley Burke has the exclusive interview with a former member of the military who alleges Edmondson raped her on board a Navy ship in 1991. And a warning, this is a story that's told in quite a bit of detail.
You know, I feel sad seeing this.
Stephanie Vio was 19 at the time.
This is me.
A steward new to the Navy, serving on HMCS Provider in 1991.
That's the combat department.
Back then, Hayden Edmondson was the third highest ranking officer on the ship. Vio says that November, Edmondson sexually assaulted her, but she says she was too afraid to report it.
I figured I would be strong enough to move on, but I know now 30 years afterwards that it never leaves you.
Vio says the inappropriate behavior escalated during an exercise at sea, one of her duties to wake up officers, including Edmondson, for their night shifts.
He started showing parts of his body, and it progressed over time, and it lasted, many nights. The last time that he's done that, I went to wake him up, and he was on his back, completely naked, and he was waiting for me. I yelled, "I can't take this any longer."
Vio says when the ship docked in Hawaii, Edmondson asked to speak to her in his cabin. Vio says she was expecting an apology.
He wouldn't let me go. I can't say that it was a violent situation, but he sort of pushed me to the wall, and he started undressing me, and he removed all my clothes, and then he turned me around and he raped me. There's no other way to say it.
Another person on board who asked to conceal her identity confirmed to CBC News that VO went missing at the time of the alleged assault.
But I do remember going back to look for her, and I remember calling her name.
I went to respond back to her calling, and he just put his hand on my mouth, and he said, "Shh." I just froze. My body just froze. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified.
VO says fears about career reprisals kept her silent.
The culture was accepting this behavior. We were sort of told that, well, this is the men's world. This is how it is. Suck it up.
VO later left the military. She says she's telling her story now in an effort to heal and is calling for an independent investigation into the Vice Admiral.
I want justice for me, but I also want justice for others.
Vice Admiral Edmondson denies the allegations. In a statement sent to CBC News, he said, "I categorically deny that I have ever had non-consensual sex with anyone ever." He also says he was not provided sufficient details of the allegations or time to respond in any detail. CBC News did provide Edmondson with an extensive list of claims yesterday. He's on leave with pay indefinitely, and the Department of National Defense says the military is troubled by the allegations. The case has been referred to the military police. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Canada has been criticized for not being able to manufacture its own vaccines.
And today, the federal government and the province of Ontario announced a massive investment to help build domestic vaccine production.
But as Hannah Thibodeau reports, this isn't to fight COVID, and it won't happen anytime soon.
It's a multi-million-dollar cash injection to build a new vaccine facility at the current Sanofi site in Toronto.
It will become a crucial contributor for future influenza and other pandemic preparedness efforts.
The federal government will provide $415 million. The Ontario government, $55 million, and Sanofi will spend more than $455 million. But this $925 million investment won't help in the current fight against COVID-19. The new facility will bulk manufacture a flu vaccine for people 65 years and older. So why now, when Canadians are grappling with the current pandemic?
It's not a short-term project, it's a long-term project, and there's many puzzle pieces that fit together. And today is a very important piece of the foundation of our progress as a country to strengthen our own domestic capacity to produce all kinds of supports during a medical crisis.
Currently, there's no domestic capacity to make COVID-19 vaccines, but this new plant could pivot down the road and tackle other potential pandemics.
I think this is really a major step in the right direction.
Robert Van Exan worked for Sanofi for 35 years. He says by having a manufacturing site already in place, Canada could ask for bulk shipments of a vaccine and be ready to package it here, meaning Canadians could get shots sooner the next time around.
It means that it's too late to start building something when a pandemic hits. You need to have the infrastructure in place and you need to maintain it. It's not just coronaviruses, it could be anything.
Experts say it takes about 5 years to build a manufacturing facility like this one, and it's expected to be up and running by 2026. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
And staying in Ontario, the province's hospitals are being overwhelmed.
There are now more COVID-19 patients in Ontario's intensive care units than any other time during the pandemic.
As Chris Glover reports tonight, the patients are sicker and younger than ever before.
Humber River Hospital's ER is so overwhelmed with COVID, patients are being sent to other hospitals hours away, and staff are reaching a breaking point.
It's brutal. Let's be frank about it. When we look at what burnout means for individuals, it means that you are mentally and emotionally exhausted.
Dr. Tuslim Nimji says recent loosened restrictions and a patchwork approach across Ontario is not working.
You need a bit of a circuit break here. You need, I think that you need some strong measures and frankly, leaky lockdowns, right? Like where you have regionalized lockdowns where you can just drive your car to the other side of the intersection and all of a sudden you can do things that you can't do on the other side. And it just doesn't make sense.
Ontario ICUs are reporting younger, sicker patients. And province-wide, a dubious record broken today. 421 COVID patients are getting intensive care in the province, the most ever during the entire pandemic.
So we are seeing a spread from shorter duration of contact, further apart, and even with masks, we're seeing that these variants of concern are spreading.
The variants are ahead by a mile.
To get a leg up, medical officers in Toronto and Peel alluded to the need for another province-wide shutdown.
I don't think that this is a simple situation. It's one that no one single jurisdiction can manage on its own.
Our own measures here in Peel are no longer holding back case growth.
I'm very concerned to see the ICU capacity.
The Premier says Cabinet will determine enhanced restrictions at a meeting today and did not rule out another province-wide shutdown.
Stay tuned. You'll hear an announcement tomorrow.
Regardless of what Ford decides, hospitals are preparing for a surge capacity of 115%, and the health minister may expand field hospitals.
We want the people of Ontario to rest assured that while the situation is concerning, we will make sure that there is capacity.
We can create capacity by opening up tents and saying we're going to create extra, spaces in the system. But ultimately, the question is always going to be, can you staff those? And can you staff those with healthcare workers that are still bringing their A game every day?
The latest data shows that COVID-19 patients in ICU are requiring, on average, about 2 weeks of critical care. So with near record-breaking new admissions every single day, the problem is only forecasted to get worse. So all of the political leaders and medical experts that we heard from today agreed on at least one thing, and that is do not gather with different households this long weekend. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
And CBC News has learned tonight that the Ontario government will put in place what it's calling an emergency break lockdown. The measures are set to come into effect starting on Saturday, and they will be province-wide.
Okay, millions of parents are welcoming an announcement today from Pfizer about how well the vaccine works in children between 12 and 15 years old.
Christine Burak explains the hope and the potential timeline to come.
They might not get as sick as adults, but children are getting infected and spreading this virus. They also make up roughly 20% of Canada's population.
I think it's almost impossible to reach herd immunity without vaccinating children.
That's one reason why Pfizer's latest trial is key. The data isn't peer-reviewed yet, but in a press release, Pfizer announced its COVID-19 vaccine is safe and demonstrated 100% efficacy in preventing the disease in teens aged 12 to 15. Experts say safety is key, but the effectiveness remains to be seen.
I think what we need to remember here is trials, clinical trials, only measure what you see in a clinical trial. They don't look at the big real world.
Pfizer's trial included over 2,200 adolescents in the U.S. Half got the vaccine, the others a placebo shot. The company says 18 cases of COVID-19 were reported among those who got the placebo, compared with none in the vaccine group, and there were no major side effects. Experts are still waiting to see all the data, but insist.
This is enormously encouraging positive results.
I've been waiting for this news, right?
The Wellmans say a safe and effective vaccine for their kids can't come fast enough.
The socialization, being able to hang out with their friends, they're really missing that.
Her question is, could Health Canada approve Pfizer's shots for 12 to 15-year-olds before the start of the next school year?
We haven't seen the data yet. We'll be getting that in a couple of weeks at Health Canada for review.
If all goes well, experts hope a vaccine could be ready for younger teens by September. At the same time, Moderna is conducting a Canadian clinical trial for kids aged 5 to 11 years old. Those results are expected early next year, which could put herd immunity well within reach. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
The convenience store clerk who sold George Floyd a pack of cigarettes on the day he died testified in court today.
That purchase set in motion the chain of events that left Floyd dead. and led to the trial of a former Minneapolis police officer for murder and manslaughter. Susan Ormiston is in Minneapolis tonight.
Oh my God.
Witness Charles McMillian, overcome, watching police body cam video of Floyd's arrest, hearing his pleas.
Can you just explain sort of what you're feeling in this moment?
I feel helpless.
McMillian was on the scene the whole time last May. Earlier, he testified he was urging Floyd to cooperate with police. Also today, new video not public before showing George Floyd inside Cup Foods, where he went to buy cigarettes. Cashier Christopher Martin talked to him.
Can you describe for the jurors generally what his demeanor was like? What was his condition like?
So when I asked him if he played baseball, he went on to respond to that, but it kind of took him a little long to get to what he was trying to say, so it would appear that he was high.
Floyd fumbled in his pockets for bills and paid for cigarettes with an alleged fake 20. The store manager sent the cashier out twice to try to get Floyd and a friend back in the store.
He was just kind of shaking his head and putting his hands in the air, like kind of like, why is this happening to me? Like, I don't want this to happen, sort of thing.
When that failed, Cup Foods called in police. Later, seeing Floyd pinned to the ground by police, Martin testified how he felt.
Disbelief and guilt.
Okay. Why guilt?
If I would have just not taken the bill, this could have been avoided.
Outside Cup Foods is now a shrine, George Floyd Square, filled with mementos, murals, and painful memories relived this week inside that court.
The jury will see the tape. It will be as obvious to them as it was to the eyes of the world.
Marcia Howard, one of the activists here since last May, says people are relieved the trial has finally begun.
There's a cautious hope, but it's America, and we know that power cedes nothing willingly. So the status quo will try very hard to maintain itself.
That's Susan Ormiston reporting from Minneapolis tonight.
Well, there's certainly a lot of COVID misinformation and disinformation out there, much of it online. We're going to talk to a researcher who's studying how and why it's spreading. Next.
Good evening. This is News Magazine. Tonight, the young state of Alaska is recovering from a gigantic earthquake that smashed most of its shoreline and scattered people and buildings around as though a giant were stepping on an anthill. It was the most powerful quake ever recorded by science, and it was followed by a tidal wave that swept down the entire Pacific coast and as far east as Japan. My name is Peter Riley. I've just returned from Alaska 4 hours ago, where the people are cleaning up the city of Anchorage and other areas and starting to build new lives for themselves. The quake hit hard at several Alaskan centers, the biggest of them, Anchorage. The Chamber of Commerce is no longer worried about putting Anchorage on the map. For a while on Friday, it appeared that the map itself was undergoing a few changes. Everything stopped at 5:37 in the afternoon when the earth heaved at Anchorage. Reporter Brian O'Brien describes what happened to one of the city's biggest department stores.
It was 24 minutes till closing time in the J.C. Penney department store when one of the mightiest earthquakes the world has ever known turned the 5-story-year-old building into a shambles. Well, shambles is hardly the word for it. The only destruction I've ever seen to equal it was caused by the wartime bombing of London. It's amazing that the death toll in Anchorage was so low. At 5:36 p.m. on Good Friday, when the walls came tumbling down, the store was nearly empty. If the quake had hit an hour or two earlier during the pre-Easter shopping rush, there would have been many more casualties in this department store.
One Easter shopper describes what shopping during an earthquake is like.
I was in the J.C. Penney building on the first floor. At the jewelry counter, I was buying a ring for my wife for Easter. Jade ring it was. And this thing started, the earthquake, momentarily I thought it was just another tremor. But a few seconds later, I realized that it was the real thing. It was an earthquake. The man I was buying the ring from, he went one way and I went the other one. And the ceiling, the plaster and everything started falling. The light fixtures started falling down. The building was moving, swaying back and forth. I went to a corner in the building, bent down against the wall, and the wall began to move, and I knew this wasn't the place for me to be. So I ran outside, and these concrete slabs were falling off in front of Penny's building. After the earthquake had simmered down, why, there was a lady in front of the building in a 63 or 64 Chevrolet, pinned under 3 of these concrete slabs that had fallen from Penny's building. There was 15 or 20 of us that tried to lift these slabs up, but I guess they weigh around 12 ton, and we were unable to do so. I talked to the woman. She was badly injured, but at the time there was nothing we could do for her. It was hopeless.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News. BC has surpassed 1,000 daily COVID-19 cases for the first time in this pandemic. There are now 1,113 new cases reported today. Sadly, 3 more people have died, and there are 301 people in hospital.
I just think that we all have to be a little bit patient. You know, it didn't happen today, but it sounds like it is going to happen. So that's encouraging, right?
Lower Mainland pharmacies seemed caught off guard and overwhelmed as thousands of people aged 55 to 65 scrambled to book the COVID-19 vaccine appointments yesterday. The government announced late in the day the opening of bookings for that age group to get the AstraZeneca shot, but getting an appointment has not been easy for many.
But I'm not surprised about the outreach and love that has been shown by the community for one another. We are a very tight-knit group.
Workers at the North Vancouver Library, near where a stabbing spree took place last week, want people to know it's still a safe place. The library reopened today while the community continues to mourn the woman who died. Those who attended the opening say everyone's just trying to heal. The 28-year-old man charged with second-degree murder is expected to appear in court tomorrow.
Vancouver police are recommending charges of mischief and assault with a weapon against a 52-year-old man who confronted an anti-masker.
You're all doing a great job complying with the narrative. There's definitely...
A man with a megaphone was speaking through the passenger seat of a car when a bystander aggressively approached him. Then you see a bystander confronting the speaker in his car, trying to interrupt the man's tirade. The two started shouting at each other, and the bystander proceeded to smash a bike on the car window. So let's talk more about COVID deniers and disinformation, because throughout this pandemic, we have seen the forming of a lot of conspiracy theories. Joining me now is Ahmed Al-Rawi, assistant professor at SFU School of Communication, leading the Disinformation Project, researching the spread of false information among the Canadian public. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so conspiracy theories predate the pandemic. That's no secret. We've all seen them. We've all seen the disinformation. But what are the different topics that we were really seeing escalate during COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the volume of false news on conspiracies before COVID and after COVID. I would emphasize here that after the 2016 US election, social media platforms were largely criticized for not taking enough action to limit the amount or the flow of false information on their platforms. So they started implementing a lot of new policies that actually managed to limit some of these conspiracies. Yet we still see a lot of these types of disinformation and as well as bad actors on these platforms. So talking about COVID-19, we have many conspiracies about it, starting first with the hoaxers who don't even believe that it exists. And this is definitely causing a great deal of concern because it could be danger regarding the public health in Canada and elsewhere. And of course, other people who do not even believe in vaccination, and so many other groups that are all gathered around the issue of COVID-19. So what we see today actually is a continuation of yesterday, but of course with different topics, sometimes associating different countries, and these conspiracies definitely will evolve with time.
Just quickly here, what can be done to combat the spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation? And I'm not talking on a really high level. I'm saying, you see someone on your Facebook, your friend that is writing these sorts of theories. What can you do to stop it from happening?
Yeah, it's an issue of public concern, to be honest, because it is related to all of us. So it starts with the individual, for sure. We have to have better media literacy skills, for sure. And we need to be more critical of what we see. If you have any doubt about the kind of information you are consuming on social media or elsewhere, don't even share it. I mean, you can cross-check the credibility or factuality of the information before thinking of sharing it. Because, sometimes even if you think the information is false and you share it, this is not really a good practice because you are spreading it further away. So I think it's better not to share any kind of controversial information. And of course, when it comes to the responsibility, we have different sides. Schools need to be also involved when it comes to this issue, the government in different ways, and even NGOs. So we are all in this together, in other words.
All right, Dr. Ahmad Al-Rawi, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you again.
A Canadian actor recognized for talking about his personal struggle in fighting transphobia. After the break, a behind-the-scenes look.
At 6:40, you are looking at a live shot of Vancouver, and you'll start to see the new pier in front of Crab Park. A picture-perfect day on the South Coast, and a nice evening as well. But it's all coming to an end. Johanna will tell us what's expected next.
Johanna Wagstaffe here now with the forecast. Well, I don't know, that was about as good as it gets, I suppose. I mean, I saw all kinds of, well, different attire out there.
Yes.
With folks today. It was nice.
Yeah, well, you could almost go short sleeve. I know, Anita, we were talking about how shocking that would be yesterday.
You don't want to know what I was wearing today.
I imagine a parka. Yeah.
Yes, a parka.
It's that kind of a day. In fact, the weather pattern we're in, where really anything goes depending on how you deal with the weather. And that's kind of the forecast as we head into the next few days. I heard someone say wear lots of layers and prepared for things to change. And that's basically our forecast Friday into Monday. But I can narrow it down a little bit over the next couple of days. Let me start you off with a look at the wind chills one more time across the country. We've been checking in on that Arctic air mass swinging across the country right now, centered in through northern Ontario. -7 in through Winnipeg. That's a recovery from your -17 wind chill yesterday. And Calgary took a couple days, but you're back up to the double digits. Same story in through Edmonton. We've got a nice 14 in through Kelowna tonight and warming up on the East Coast as well. Quick look at the satellite once again. You can see things are filling in as we speak. Generally overcast skies now ahead of the dissipating cold front. That cold front will bring very strong winds to central and northern coastal sections and central interior, including the Peace region. But for us, it really sort of tapers out. So just looking at that risk of a shower through the morning and then another risk of some showers in the afternoon hours, but not a washout for your Thursday. Mix of sun and cloud across most of the southern interior. I mentioned getting some nice temperatures in through the Okanagan as well. Soyuz could hit 17 or even 18. Prince Rupert still in the line of fire, although you'll see that rain end towards your afternoon. A couple centimeters for you, not out of the question tonight into tomorrow, which is unusual for Prince Rupert. 18 in through Soyuz tomorrow is the forecast high. As we head into Friday, coming down slightly as we see a bit of a wind shift across the province behind what's left of that cold front. Okay, breaking down your long weekend forecast. Few showers tomorrow. A much sunnier Friday, possibly a few showers Saturday. We're just in between systems, so nothing too organized. At this point, it looks like we clear out nicely for Sunday and Monday, all blue skies. So I'll keep you posted, but keep all the layers also posted.
Well, Mike just got really excited seeing that sunshine on Sunday. So
my campaign, my campaign to shift days may have to come to an end.
I think it's kicking in. I think it's kicking in, Mike. Yeah, somebody heard you.
You've been campaigning for a few years now. So thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, today marks International Transgender Day of Visibility. Growing up, Michaela Cadger was Michaela on the inside, but to the world, she was a boy with a strong physique.
Now an advocate for trans women, Cadger is speaking out about violence she and others face through her writing.
In this video, the Vancouverite shares some of her painful experiences as a trans woman through poetry.
Meet Michaela, the easy target. When I walk into a room, everyone stops and stares. It is impossible to divorce her new name from the shape of her body, so why even try? You can't be bothered to put in the simple effort required to use my correct pronouns, and with that proclamation, you've stomped on my self-respect and worth. I wish I didn't have to be a real girl. I wish I didn't have to be real to be allowed to exist. No one ever thinks of trans women as human because we are more ghost than flesh, more fetish than actuality, filling others with only disgust and lust. People fear that my gender expression is a trick, that it exists to be perverse, that it ensnares people without their consent. Once they have fed off my queer, and they have spit up all the parts they did not like, they will put me back into the closet and hang my body with all the other skeletons. My value as a human being is not sewn into the band of my underwear. I don't want to end up with stab wounds and bullet holes, because I'm not a real woman. Whoever you are, no matter the pain you've lived through, the world offers itself to your imagination, and we can learn to manifest our dreams, but only if those dreams are allowed to live. Our wounds become our gift, because after all, virtue is vice overcome. Who we are meant to be is worth the difficult journey of becoming, but only if we can release ourselves from the burden of shame. That's a miracle that will not happen if we're not allowed to simply exist.
Powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And a Canadian actor is getting recognition for talking about his personal struggle against anti-trans discrimination.
Elliot Page has been using his platform to fight transphobia and was recently featured on the cover of Time magazine.
Eli Glasner has the behind-the-scenes story on this major moment for Page and his photographer.
Canadian photographer Win Neely thought the pandemic had ended his career. Then he got an email from Time magazine.
I was like, this is fake. What is this?
Your little girlfriend gave me the stink eye in art class.
Then the photo editor told him about the assignment, shooting Canadian actor Elliot Page, the former star of Juno and Umbrella Academy.
Trying to keep my cool, nodding, but like internally freaking out.
In December, Page announced he was trans.
He had seen my work and wanted another trans photographer to portray this moment.
Neely has never shied away from his trans masculine identity. In fact, he's embraced it in his work. That comfort level helped create conditions to capture this new chapter in Elliot Page's journey.
His autonomy, self-expression, his authenticity, I think, really shines through here.
But the media hasn't always treated trans subjects with respect.
The way that we portray trans people is an act of violence, oftentimes, not when it's shot by queer and trans people.
Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. And a smile.
With more diversity behind the lens, things are starting to change. This fashion photographer shot Lena Bloom, the first Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover model, who's a trans woman of color.
She's part Asian, she's part black, and she's trans, and I'm gay. Look who's our rookie this year! And I laugh and I joke about it on set with her. While working together, I felt like we both were sitting on the back of a unicorn. Yes!
He says the industry is heading in the right direction.
It should not be a surprising news when we see Lena in a magazine or on the cover. We should just say, this is the right thing to do. And this is normal, not the new normal.
In the pages of Time, Elliot Page talked about becoming trans with gratitude, but also fear and anxiety. Before the shoot began, Win Neely says he shared some tips for the road ahead.
This is a lot for anyone to deal with. It's a journey of self-love and self-respect.
And a fight for equality, a photo at a time. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
A tiny camera goes inside this tiny model fair. After the break, meet the 9-year-old behind the Play-Doh reproduction.
People living on Labrador's north coast say the stars used to be brighter. There wasn't fog like there is now. But fog rolls in with warm temperatures, and warm temperatures mean less sea ice. Communities are now quite literally living closer to the edge.
With the global warming, the climate changing, the sea edge is so much closer than it used to be.
There's a lot of concerns that I have for the rising water. The bay here is going to get higher. Some of our roads in our community are low.
And it's not just rising water and infrastructure damage that leaders on the north coast are concerned about. They're also worried about the cost of living going up without being able to travel on ice to hunt and collect firewood. And most importantly, saving a culture they spent centuries to preserve.
Inuit are people of the ice and snow. We hunt seal, go fishing, ice fishing. We travel on the land years ago on dog team. The ice is like that. It's our highway. It's our way of getting from point A to point B. It refreshes you. It reminds you of who you are, where you came from. When we can't get out, it's a big deal.
We can get blizzards just like that, and they could just go through the ice, and it's scary. Imagine what it's going to be like for our grandchildren by the time they come my age.
We're going to have to do things in a different kind of way. I guess if we end up with no ice, that'll be drastic. we're going to have to find different ways, I guess, to move around and at different times of the year.
But constantly adapting brings with it a heavy load. Ashley Consolo has been studying how climate change impacts all aspects of mental and emotional health.
A lot of people in the research that we were doing indicated that, being forced into adaptation became another mental health stressor. So how is it going to happen? What would it mean? A lot of worry for the future. So when you're carrying that level of burden and anxiety and stress and trying to find new ways to do things that you've done for generations, I mean, that is definitely not only a stressor, but a huge sense of exhaustion and fatigue.
We are at risk of losing a lot. The biggest thing is the way of life that the Sikomuk, the Labrador Inuit, have lived for thousands of years. And when losing that, we are losing many things.
But adapting strategies have already started, so hopefully Inuit don't have to lose those traditions. Coming up later in this series, we'll share with you ways in which they're doing just that. Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Okay, a Play-Doh and pipe cleaner reproduction of St. John's City Market is enchanting people on social media.
9-year-old Jalen Clark built the model as part of New Brunswick's Heritage Fair program, but it was a post online that made the project go viral.
Okay, so first of all, I guess it would be St. John. Clark gave CBC a tour inside the model, that was my mistake, using a tiny camera.
It looks just like the city market. There's like a grandma and my grandpa, and they're trying to get fruit and veggies. And over here is my dad and Laura, and then I'm back in the background. They're trying to get some vegetables, and I'm trying to get some meat.
She's a normal 9-year-old kid who mostly wants to play Roblox. So there were days where she didn't want to work on it.
Back here, Mommy is looking for some wreaths, and there's t-shirts behind her. There's some like little goodies, like donuts and cookies.
She found working with the clay to make the people and the fruit and vegetables much more fun and painting than doing research and working on her handwriting and cutting out paper and pictures.
First I'm gonna like make the head, so I just put it against my fingers and roll it. Then I sit it down, and I do the same with this. But then I do this. I make it kind of like a cone shape and then pop it on. Like I do it again, and then I stretch it out to make it whatever kind of hair I want. And then I just stick it on, like that.
She's very crafty, so we wanted to find something that she could make something with her hands.
Fold it and then cut it in the middle. Make sure don't cut your fingers. Draw a lamp shape, a yellow pencil crayon, color it like that. Then I cut it out, then glue it on.
I'm not originally from St. John, so there was a lot for me to learn. I didn't know how old the market was. I didn't know how it was built. I didn't know who built it. So these are all things that I learned.
Show all the stands.
When I came home from work and the counter was full of those, like all the bananas, all the little fruits and vegetables, and there were just little white bits everywhere. Jalen, colored each individual one, and then they glued each individual one.
I tried to draw smiley faces on them. It was hard because they were round.
We were gluing things on the day before it was due, and it got done, and when she said it was done, she was done.
Jalen's St. John City Market in New Brunswick, looking good.
It does look good. I love her mask, though. I was distracted by the mask, but all around, a lot of creativity.
Yes.
Great.
Remember Play-Doh?
I do. I'm sure I'm going to be reintroducing it into my life at some point soon.
That smell ends up in your hands for forever, but fun stuff. And nice work, too.
Producer Matthew says it's also delicious.
No.
So
No.
I don't know if I'll be trying it anytime soon.
Matthew. Okay, quick reminder, you can always watch our newscasts online, cbc.ca/BC.
Next local news is right here at 11 with Isabel Reagam in for Dan Burt tonight. Good night.
Don't eat the Play-Doh.